welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite category of game that you play with a whole bunch of people. For this particular case, the more people that you have, the better off you're going to be. And the category itself is games that heavily involve negotiation. One of the things that I really like is I really enjoy table talk between people and being able to try to really get alliances and break them and change them and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun. It makes for a really great dynamic for the game itself, and in my opinion just makes everything that much more fun because you can really get a whole lot going, as opposed to everybody just takes their turn, does whatever they need to do, and you don't have a great deal of interaction or much less real negotiation about who's going to help who and how and when and where and all that kind of stuff. But either way, I digress. I'll go ahead and get started right off with my top 5 games that involve negotiation. At number 5, I've got a game that I have talked about fairly extensively in several different categories. And in this one, it sort of exemplifies really the core gameplay for it. The game itself is a Game of Thrones. And the reason that this is kind of low on the list is actually because the negotiation itself is, I wouldn't say necessarily arbitrary within the game, but in the end, the negotiation has less impact on the game itself than your overall strategy. Negotiation certainly does help. The diplomacy overall does change a lot about how everything works, as far as who you're going to help, how you're going to help them, when you're going to help them, all of that kind of stuff. Overall, it is a very, very fun game. Like I said, I've talked about it many different times about all sorts of different aspects of it, but for this purpose, the biggest thing is the little bitty token for support. It's the little iron fist symbol, because that essentially means that you are going to back up an army. You're going to go in there and you're going to help them out if they need help, or maybe you'll help out the opponent. Who knows? That's really the crux of the negotiation with this game, at least in terms of the actual board. There's always table talk and, saying, hey, if you hold this, then I'll hold this, and then, by our powers combined, we are sitting on the Iron Throne, or whatever it happens to be. But like I said, as far as the negotiation mechanic itself, it is somewhat put on the back burner. Not too much, don't get me wrong. It is certainly still there and it is very prominent. But as far as the other game mechanics, those are still more important than the overall diplomacy negotiation type of things with this game. But overall, that is why Game of Thrones is my number 5. At number 4, I have one of my newer games that I've talked about only a couple of times that involves a lot of negotiation with other players, ranging from please don't attack me to if I go here and you go there, then we can trade, and all sorts of stuff like that. The game itself is Eclipse. So in this, you can trade pretty much anything you want. It's actually pretty intense. There is a great deal of negotiation, ranging again from resource and technology management, all the way to simply saying, please don't attack me and I'll do this for you. There is a whole lot, and a lot of people tend to tout this as like the Twilight Imperium 3 Lite or something along those lines, just sort of comparing it to Twilight Imperium, which realistically would be pretty high on this list as well, if it weren't for some of my personal favorites. But Eclipse itself really does take essentially the negotiation aspects of Twilight Imperium and puts it into this game. You are missing out on things like the turn-by-turn role picking. You do still have roles technically because you each have like the individual alien that you control in some form or another. But in this particular case, unlike Twilight Imperium, every turn you're not changing what you're able to do, things like that. But you still do have plenty of negotiation, lots of opportunity for backstabbing and all sorts of crazy stuff like that, just like all of the games on this list. But either way, that's why Eclipse is my number 4. At number 3, I have a game that, to me personally, sort of epitomizes the idea of negotiation at a table, and the reason being simply because of what it's based on. The game itself is Article 27, and this is based around the idea that you and all the other players are each a member of the UN Security Council. So whenever I think of the UN, well, besides thinking that they are fairly worthless, I think that it's just a bunch of people sitting around a table yelling at each other about what they can and cannot and should not do. And that is, in essence, what Article 27 is. The idea is that you are all members of the Security Council and you are trying to get your resolutions passed and you are trying to get the whatever specific ideas and ideals that you have passed. You want, like, for example, if you want agriculture, then you have to try to make sure that people vote yay for agriculture and all that kind of stuff. It has a bribing mechanic, not to mention anything can be traded at the table, so you can say, if you vote for mine, I'll vote for yours, etc., etc. I mean, you know, the tit for tat, quid pro quo, however you want to say it, it's all in here. It is a very, very good negotiation game, and it just makes for a lot of fun. It makes it a really good time, but it is something that can fairly easily sort of collapse into chaos. And instead of negotiation, it gets more to yelling and potentially throwing stuff. So just make sure you don't have any sharp objects nearby when you play Article 27. But either way, that is why this is my number 3. At number 2, I've got a game that I have played numerous times, but only very recently acquired for myself. This game is actually based almost entirely on being able to negotiate with people and get along, which we know makes for a great game, because nobody ever does! The game itself is Imperial, and I was actually really seriously debating here because Imperial and diplomacy share a lot of the same ideas and principles and things like that. Diplomacy is well, it's not really arguable. It's a lot more in-depth in terms of the types and the ways and all that kind of stuff for the negotiation. But the biggest problem that I have with diplomacy, aside from the fact that it takes 7 hours to play, is the fact that the negotiation itself typically consists of everybody sitting around a table, everybody moves their stuff, takes their turn, and then you spend an hour and a half going off into little corners just talking to one another about who you're going to ally with, who you're going to backstab, and all that kind of stuff. And for me personally, the point that I like with negotiation is the table talk, the back and forth, and I think that Imperial really delivers that aspect a lot better than diplomacy does. Not only that, but the funny thing about Imperial is if you don't like the way that somebody is negotiating with you, you can literally buy them out of the country. because the idea is that whoever controls the most stock in a country controls what that country does. So if the person across from you is, let's say they're controlling Italy and you're controlling the UK, and you're trying to negotiate with them, trying to get them to do something, help you out in a battle, whatever it happens to be, and they say no, then you're just like, fine, I'm just going to buy majority share in Italy, and now I'm going to do whatever I want. It's absolutely hilarious and ridiculous. And obviously it's not really it's not really a proxy to what actually happens, or at least we hope it's not. But either way, it's still really, really fun. And as far as negotiation goes, it doesn't get a whole lot better than this, because that's pretty much all you're able to do. Not only if you are the majority shareholder, then you not only have to keep yourself and the any allies that you have happy, but also anybody who also owns stock in the country. The problem is, if you have somebody who just has a little bit of stock, just enough to like get by and keep having it, then I mean, what if having your stock and having your stock go up would make that person win? Then maybe you got to try to tank the country or something like that. All sorts of stuff, lots and lots and lots of ability for different negotiation, different types of negotiation, different ways and things to negotiate. Lots and lots of fun. Really, really great game. Imperial, my number 2. I have a game that might not be much of a surprise to some of you if you've watched some of my videos in the past, but my absolute favorite game of all time heavily involves negotiation. The game is Cosmic Encounter. And in particular, for the purpose of this video, I want to say a lot of this has to do with the expansions. So this particular version is the Fantasy Flight version, and currently it's got 5 expansions. Of those, I've got 4, and a lot of them add a certain level of negotiation with whatever you're doing. So, for example, in the base game, you literally have the card that says negotiate. And the idea is that if both players play a negotiation card, then you can try to make a deal. Easy enough, right? But additional expansions add all sorts of crazy stuff. The whole point of this game is that you're trying to negotiate with your fellow players to help you out. You want them to help you, but at the same time, you don't want to help them too much. You want to make certain that, you know, you get the person that's a little bit behind you to help you out. You know, stuff like that. But at the same time, if people don't help you, then you're probably not going to win. You need the help of your fellow players, and with the addition of a lot of the expansion materials, they add in all sorts of different stuff. Like they add negotiations that involve all sorts of different other things in terms of different types of negotiations, where if they play an attack card, then you get different bonuses from them. You've got different cards where every person can actually place a card face down, and then you can pick if you want to take somebody else's card as your own card. It's insane. There is all sorts of crazy stuff that you can do, not to mention the idea of, you know, if you've so for example, I was actually just playing this the other night, and one of the players was playing as the reserve, which is a power that can use low attack cards to increase numbers after the fact. So everybody kind of wants to be on his side, because you know that he's going to be able to bring heat no matter what side he's on. So it gets to the point of, you know, if you help me out, then, you know, some other time I'm going to be able to help you in some form or another. And in addition to that, a lot of the alien powers can actually enable you to get more negotiating leverage. So, for example, the zombie can actually bring other players' ships back from the dead. which is really, really cool and very powerful, obviously. So really exciting game. It's one of the games where you've got to play it a couple of times to really see a lot of the strategy and intrigue, negotiation, all that kind of stuff that's inside of it. But especially if you add 2 or 3 of the expansions, I think even one, depending on which ones you get. But if you add some of the expansions to this and then playing a few times, then you realize very quickly how important it is to really be able to negotiate very effectively and be able to be on everybody's good side, essentially, at least at some point or another, until it's time for you to solo victory through it. So because of all that, and partially just because it's really my favorite game of all time, Cosmic Encounter is my #1 game for negotiation. So that's it for me, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed my video on my top 5 board games that involve negotiation. If you have a personal favorite, if you disagree with my list, if you agree with it, any thoughts or feelings or whatever you want to say, go ahead and feel free to put them in the comments below. And in addition, feel free to like and subscribe so that you can see more videos like this and more in the future as well. And until next time, I will see you later. Once again, I hope that you enjoyed my video on my top 5 favorite games that heavily involve negotiation. If you have a personal favorite, or if you just want to add to a discussion, feel free to leave any and all thoughts in the comments. And if you want to see more of my videos, you can see a few of them linked at the top, and you can click that big giant subscribe button to see more on board games, video games, as well as scientific demonstrations and discussions. Thank you once again, and I will see you next time.